Welcome to Stories Pulse, where every tale keeps you on the edge of your seat. In today's story, an ordinary man's act of kindness spirals into a web of danger, secrets, and shocking revelations. If you love suspenseful and thrilling stories like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment and let us know what you think. Stay tuned for more gripping tales. Your next adventure is just a click away. The night was heavy with rain, and the streets were nearly empty. Paul Keene gripped the steering wheel tightly as he navigated his car through the soaked roads. A man who thrived on routine, Paul lived a predictable life. A regular 9-to-5 job, quiet evenings at home, and no trace of unpredictability. He liked it that way. But that night was different. Driving home from a long day at work, Paul spotted a woman on the side of the road, soaking wet and frantically waving her arms. Her pale face and trembling body made her desperation clear. She was pregnant and looked ready to collapse. Without hesitation, Paul slowed the car and rolled down his window. "Please, help me," she gasped. "I need to get to the hospital." For a brief moment, Paul considered driving on. This wasn't his problem. His home was warm, and his evening was planned. But something about her urgency pierced through his need for normalcy. He opened the door and helped her inside. The tension in the car was palpable as the woman clutched her belly, grimacing in pain. Her breath came in shallow bursts, and she seemed to be fighting to stay conscious. Paul glanced at her, trying to calm his rising anxiety. "What's your name?" he asked, attempting to lighten the atmosphere and distract her from the pain. "Rita," she replied through gritted teeth. "My baby. He's coming early." Paul pushed the pedal harder, the car speeding through the rain-drenched streets. Visibility was poor, and the hospital felt miles away, but he pressed on. The air inside the car grew thick with fear and tension. Finally, they arrived at the hospital. Paul helped Rita inside, where a team of nurses quickly rushed her to the maternity ward. He stood at the entrance, watching the flurry of activity, unsure of what to do next. This wasn't part of his plan. Hours passed as Paul sat in the waiting room, sipping stale coffee, his mind swirling. At last, a doctor approached him with a soft smile. "She's going to be fine, Mom," the doctor said. "It was a close call, but the baby is healthy. You did the right thing bringing her in." Relief washed over Paul as he nodded, feeling his role was complete. It was time to go home and put the night behind him. Yet as he drove away from the hospital, a strange sense of unease lingered. The next morning, Paul woke up unsettled, the events of the previous night replaying in his mind. Rita's pale face, the frantic drive, and the hospital rushed back to him. He told himself it was a one-off event, a brief departure from his usual life. But on his way to work, something strange happened. In his rearview mirror, he noticed a motorcycle weaving through traffic. At first, he dismissed it as coincidence, just a motorcyclist trying to get ahead. But no matter how many turns Paul took, the motorcycle stayed close. Suspicion gnawed at him as the rider followed him relentlessly. At a stoplight, Paul glanced back again. The rider, clad in a black helmet and leather jacket, didn't attempt to pass but revved the engine as if waiting. When the light turned green, the motorcycle surged forward, coming alongside Paul's car. The rider gestured for him to pull over. Reluctantly, Paul turned onto a quieter side street, his heart racing. The motorcycle followed closely until both vehicles came to a stop. Paul hesitated before rolling down his window, his hand instinctively reaching for his phone. The rider removed his helmet, revealing a rugged man in his mid-30s with an intense, unreadable expression. "Get out of the car," the man said, his voice low and demanding. Paul's heart pounded. "Who are you?" he managed to ask. The man's lips curled into a cold smile. "You helped my wife last night. Now we need to talk." A chill ran down Paul's spine. Rita's husband? But something about the man's demeanor felt off. It didn't seem like gratitude. It felt like a threat. Paul stepped out of the car cautiously, his mind racing. The man's presence was intimidating, his voice sharp. "You shouldn't have gotten involved," he said. "Rita wasn't just a helpless woman. She's tied to people you don't want to cross." Paul's breath hitched. "What are you talking about?" "I just helped her get to the hospital." The man laughed coldly. "You think you did a good thing?" You don't even know what you've stepped into. Rita was running. From me, from others. She's not who you think she is. Paul's stomach churned. I don't understand. You don't need to, the man snapped. Just stay out of it. Don't look for her. Forget last night ever happened. Before Paul could respond, the man walked back to his motorcycle, started the engine, and sped off, leaving Paul frozen in place. For days, Paul tried to push the encounter out of his mind, but the warning lingered. Then one evening, as he sat in his living room, there was a knock at the door. His heart skipped a beat. He wasn't expecting anyone. Peering through the peephole, he saw Rita, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with desperation. Please, she whispered, I need your help again. Paul hesitated, every instinct telling him to turn her away. But against his better judgment, he opened the door slightly. Your husband found me, he said, his voice low. He warned me to stay away from you. Rita flinched. He's not my husband. He's dangerous. I made a mistake, Paul. I ran, and now I'm trying to protect my baby, but they won't stop. Paul's chest tightened. Who are they? Rita glanced over her shoulder, fear etched on her face. It doesn't matter. If you don't help me, they'll kill me and my baby. Against his better judgment, Paul agreed. That night they drove again, but this time headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, a motorcycle followed by a black SUV. Paul's heart sank. They were being hunted. The chase was relentless, with Paul swerving through streets trying to lose them. When he saw a forest road, he veered off, hoping to escape. The car skidded to a halt, and he and Rita tumbled out, running into the woods. Behind them, the shouts of men echoed as they searched. Finally, they found an old abandoned cabin deep in the forest. Inside, Paul turned to Rita, breathless. We can't keep running. You need to tell me the truth. Rita hesitated, then confessed everything. The dangerous men she had crossed, the money they were after, and how her baby was the key to her escape. Paul felt trapped in a nightmare, but knew he couldn't walk away now. I'll help you, he said, determined. But the final confrontation revealed a shocking twist. The people hunting Rita weren't after her. They were after the child. And the most devastating truth? The baby wasn't hers after all. When the chaos ended, Rita vanished into the night, leaving Paul alone with a cryptic note. Thank you for everything. You saved us both. Standing in the quiet cabin, Paul knew his life would never return to normal. He had been drawn into a world of shadows and lies, and though the immediate danger had passed, he sensed the story was far from over.